Did you know that starting right now in 2026, your face has become your passport, and if you don't know about this change, it could cost you your green card? If you're a permanent resident planning any international travel this year, please stop everything and watch this video first, because the rules at US airports have changed in ways that most people simply haven't heard about yet. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could save you from a very serious and very avoidable mistake. If this sounds important to you, and it absolutely should, go ahead and hit that like button right now, subscribe so you never miss a critical update like this one, and when we're done, I'd love for you to drop a comment and tell me if you've already experienced any of these changes at the airport. Now, let's get into it. So let's start from the very beginning, because I want you to fully understand what has changed and why it matters so much for you personally. As of March 2026, the Department of Homeland Security, which most people know simply as DHS, has officially rolled out what they're calling a final rule. Now, that phrase, final rule, might sound like just another piece of government language, but what it actually means is that this is no longer a proposal or a pilot program. This is law. It is in effect right now, today, and it applies to every single non-US citizen who crosses a US border, including, and this is the part that surprises so many people, green card holders. Here is the core of what has changed. Biometric data collection, and the main form of that is facial recognition technology, is now mandatory at every single US entry and exit point. Every airport. Every seaport. Every land border crossing. Even if you are arriving on a private aircraft. There are no exceptions based on where you are coming from or how you are traveling. When you step into that customs line, a camera is going to scan your face, compare it to the image on file, and log your crossing in a federal database. Welcome to 2026. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, well, I've been scanned at airports before. This isn't entirely new. And you're right, facial recognition technology has been used in US airports for a few years now in certain terminals and with certain airlines. But here is what is genuinely new and genuinely important. Two major things have changed that make this a completely different situation for green card holders specifically. The first big change is the removal of age exemptions. In the past, children under 14 and adults over 79 were exempt from biometric screening. That exemption is gone. Every person, regardless of age, must now undergo biometric screening. So if you're traveling with grandchildren, or if you yourself are in your 70s or 80s, this applies to you just as much as it applies to a 35-year-old traveler. No exceptions. No workarounds. But the second change, and this is the one I really want you to pay close attention to, is what I think of as the hidden trap. For the first time in American history, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, known as CBP, now has an automated, precise, digital record of exactly how long you spend outside the United States. Every time you leave, it's logged. Every time you return, it's logged. And the system keeps a running total. Why does that matter so much? Because of something that every green card holder needs to understand deeply, and that is the residency requirement. As a permanent resident, you are expected to actually live in the United States. The law has always said this. But in the past, enforcing it was imperfect. Officers relied on stamps in your passport, your word, and paper records. Now, there is no ambiguity. The computer knows exactly when you left and exactly when you came back. Here is the number you need to remember: 6 months. If you stay outside the United States for more than 6 months in a single trip, that is the threshold that can trigger what is called a loss of residency investigation. And if you show a pattern of long absences, even if each individual trip is under 6 months, that pattern can also raise red flags. Imagine working hard for years to earn your green card, building your life in this country, and then losing that status because you spent an extra few weeks taking care of a sick relative abroad without realizing the clock was running. That is exactly the kind of heartbreaking situation this new system makes more likely, not because people are doing anything wrong, but because they simply didn't know. Let me tell you about someone, let's call her Maria, though of course I'm speaking in general terms. Maria is in her late 60s. She came to the United States from Central America over 20 years ago, worked hard, raised her children here, and earned her green card. Every few years, she goes back to her home country to visit her elderly mother. She usually stays for about 4 or 5 months. Under the old system, she was fine. Under the new system, Maria's trips are being logged with precision she's never experienced before, and if she ever stretches that visit to 7 months without preparation, she could find herself in secondary inspection, facing questions about her residency, and potentially in a very stressful legal situation, all because of a rule she never heard about. Now let's talk about what actually happens at the airport under these new rules, so you know exactly what to expect when you travel. When you arrive at U.S. Customs and Border Protection, you will be directed to a biometric kiosk or a staffed booth equipped with facial recognition technology. The camera scans your face and compares it to the photo associated with your immigration file. If everything matches cleanly and your records are in order, you move through quickly. But here is something that catches many travelers off guard: if your current appearance is significantly different from the photo on your green card, you are much more likely to be pulled into what's called secondary inspection. Secondary inspection is not an arrest. It is not a punishment. But it is a much longer, more stressful process where an officer manually reviews your documents and asks you questions about your travel and your residency. For many people, especially seniors who may be exhausted after a long international flight, being taken into a small room and questioned by a federal officer is extremely unsettling. The best way to avoid it is to make sure your green card photo still looks like you. Here is a practical detail that very few people know: if your last biometric photo was taken more than 36 months ago, you may be required to provide a fresh photograph during your next immigration application or even at a border crossing itself. So before you travel, take a good honest look at your green card photo. Has your hair changed significantly? Do you now wear glasses all the time when you didn't before? Have you had any medical changes that affect your appearance? If there's a meaningful difference, be mentally prepared for a longer process at the border, and consider updating your records proactively. There is also another layer to this new system that I want to make sure you understand, because it goes beyond just the camera at the airport. DHS has proposed, and is actively implementing, what they call continuous vetting. This means that for people who are seeking immigration benefits, fingerprints and iris scans may be collected and cross-referenced continuously until the point that a person becomes a U.S. citizen. And the databases being used don't just talk to immigration records. They are being linked with IRS tax data and Social Security information. What this means in practical terms is that if you have significant unpaid tax debts, that information may surface during a border crossing in ways it never could before. I'm not saying this to alarm you. I'm saying it so that you can be informed and prepared. Now, let's talk about what you absolutely must have with you every single time you travel. Federal law, and this has always been the law, though enforcement is stricter now, requires green card holders to carry their physical green card, officially called Form I-551, at all times. Not a photo of it on your phone. Not a photocopy. The actual physical card. If your card is expired, you need to have documentation showing you've applied for a renewal, specifically your 24-month extension notice, or what's called an ADIT stamp in your passport. Traveling without these documents can result in fines or even detention at the port of entry, and that is a situation none of us want to be in. There is one more thing I want to highlight before we wrap up the body of today's video, and it is something that many permanent residents overlook entirely: the re-entry permit. If you are planning to be outside the United States for more than 1 year, perhaps to care for a family member, or to handle property or business matters abroad, you must apply for a re-entry permit before you leave. You cannot apply for it once you're already outside the country. It must be done in advance, while you are still on U.S. soil. This permit essentially tells CBP that you have permission to be abroad for an extended period without it counting against your residency status. Without it, coming back after more than a year could be a very serious problem. Also, please remember, and this is a simple but often forgotten step, if you have moved recently, you are legally required to update your address with USCIS using Form AR-11 within 10 days of your move. This keeps your records current, which matters more than ever now that all these databases are being cross-referenced. A wrong address on file can create complications you simply don't need. I know this is a lot of information, and I want you to know that sharing it with you comes from a place of genuine care. These rules are real, they are in effect, and they are affecting real people right now. The goal of everything we've talked about today is to make sure that you, someone who has worked hard and built a life in this country, are protected, informed, and ready. Coming up next, I'm going to bring everything together for you in a clear, concise summary, and I'll give you a simple action plan, step by step, so you know exactly what to do before your next trip. You're not going to want to miss that part, so stay right where you are.